short comment. Whenever people found out that I was a cue maker or I was involved in the billiard industry, the first question they asked, do you know Minnesota Fats? I said, yes, he's a fan of mine, he is my friend. Will you stand up? Minnesota Fats. At this moment, we shall now call Rudolph Wonderoni, Minnesota Fats, into the Hall of Fame of the Billiard Congress of America. Now, it's Minnesota Fats' turn. Come on, Nick, give us a talk.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to be here again in Fort Worth. I spent a lot of time in Fort Worth. I was around here in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and 60s, and I'm here again. Played a lot of pool, a lot of cards here. If you have any questions like that, I'll be glad to answer them for you. I don't need no fact sheets or nothing. I talk forever. I never looked at a cue card in my life. And no one has to write my material. I went on a stage for 3.5 hours. The comedian walked off the stage in Las Vegas, and I could have spoke till now, and that was in 78 or 79. I do all my own work. Don't need no help. And I can really play. Beat every living creature that ever lived, and the only pool player on earth that ever made a living playing pool. And after you win the money, you got to leave with it. I was the only one could leave with it. So if you have any question like that, played all over the earth. I know more about geography than any living creature on earth. Never went to school in my life. Know every body of water and every known seaport and every town on earth, from the north to the south pole and clean around the earth. Yeah, you ain't got no idea how many times I've been around the earth. I used to play cards on a ship, leave New York, and come back 3 years later. Played a Russian sea captain for 3 years, and then the ship sunk off the Fort Canal. He ain't win a hand yet. Russian peanut. I play any kind, anything. I just don't play pool. Pool's the greatest toy the world has ever known. And all the women can thank pool for one great thing. It's the greatest toy on earth, and it made everybody equal. And the places in the olden days were real poor, but they had beautiful places too, but women couldn't play pool. It wasn't their bag. See, and then the people thought that women shouldn't play pool. They only had like 2 great pool players on earth in them days, see. Ruth McGinnis was one of the great players. And she had high runs of 100, you know, and was a real good player. And Gene Belucas is one of the greatest players in the world today. Many great players. A lot of women now play, have a lot of fun. See, and it's a wonderful thing when a man can bring his wife or his girlfriend or his children into a place and they all can play. See, that's the secret of life, is playing, not working. Working for suckers. I've been playing since I was 2 years old. I didn't ever need a mother or a father. I raised myself at the time I was 23 months old. I hung in saloons and I eat all the free lunch, all I don't drink and don't smoke and don't need nothing. I don't need nothing to turn me on. I can drink that glass of iced tea and my toes stand straight up. Glad to be be here. If you have any questions like that, answer all questions immediately. Wherever you're from. And wherever you're from, I've been there. I don't care where you're from. I could stand in the corner of 42nd Street and Broadway for 4 years, and whoever came by, it's already been almost proven. During the war, I was in New Orleans, and there was people from all over the world, you know, coming and going. And so a guy said, well, if you've been everywhere, ask that kid where he's from. There was a kid from Hong Kong, Chinaman. And he says, where are you from? Hong Kong. I said, was you ever there, Fatty? I said, Rob, Happy the Chinaman and Jimmy Lee before you was born in Hong Kong. Then I played them in Macau and Taiwan, too. Then they had a great big group of Chinese people came from Peking to Atlantic City less than 3 years ago. And they all stayed at this big hotel where we're having a tournament, see. And so the fellow from Chinatown, 300 Chinese, came into New York, and then they bring them in buses to the casino. See? So to make a long story short, he come running to me. He says, you know something? He says, I didn't know that you robbed everybody in China. He says, there's 300 Chinamen from Peking here, and everybody knows you. I says, that ain't all. I says, there's like a billion people in China, and if I ever get short of money, I'll go over there, and each one will give me $50, and I'll be rich again. All my fans. But every champion that ever lived, and none of them ever won. I played Eric Hagenlacker. He was the champion of the world in Berlin, Germany. And then Montpellier in Paris, and Isidro Ribas in Barcelona, Spain, the terrible Turk in Istanbul. That's right. Then I played Happy the Chinaman in Hong Kong and Jimmy Lee. Then I went to Tokyo, played two of the greatest players the world has ever known, Kinrei Matsuyama and Suzuki. They didn't like it either. I used to drive from El Paso to Guadalajara, Mexico City, and played everybody that ever walked in my path. Mike Malacaro, who just died in the last 2 or 3 years in San Antonio, he was a Latin American champion of the world playing pool, and Joe Schumacher was the billiard champion. I used to give billiard champions 6 on 30 after they win the championship of the world. A lot of people don't know that, but a lot do. You go call Freddie Whalen in L.A., and he'll tell you, they talk about averaging 1 and averaging 2. I used to play 25 points of tree cushion to go out in 3 innings, 2 8s and a 9. And I mean, for the guys to play 5-note count, and all the players, Luke the last, all of them was around nose. Yeah, I used to give a guy 8 and 30, he just win the championship of the world. I give him 8 and 30. I played that great player, Montpellier. He was supposed to be so great. After I broke him, I stayed in Paris for 3 years. I played for Maharajas, kings and queens, and all the Arabs. That's right, I played in their homes, and every one Arab give me 30 girls. He says, what would you rather have, a brand new Rolls Royce or 30 girls? I said, I'll take them both. I used to drive Duesenbergs when I was putting air in them other guys' sneakers. That's on the square. You can't tell them stories forever, and they've got to be exact. You know, it has to be so. I've played some of the greatest players here, and this in Chicago in the 20s and 30s. I ironed out everybody in Chicago. I used to, you know my racket was? They have a championship now, you got 900 championships a year. They had won a pool tournament in New York and a billiard championship in Chicago, and vice versa, and then once in a while they swung it off to Philadelphia, because Philadelphia was a great pool town. So then they'd have the pool or billiard championship in Philadelphia, and December the 5th they would start with the pool, and it'd end before Christmas, and the guy that come in second couldn't get home if he lived in Baltimore. Yeah. And I used to hang around there, and whoever win it, that's the only one I wanted. I didn't care about the losers. Whoever win it, maybe somebody bet 400 on it. I played Ralph Greenleaf 1,000 times in my life, and there's a lot of old people knows about it. See, Ralph Greenleaf owned a room in New York, which wound up being McGurk's later, but a man by the name of Willie Hoppy, one of the greatest players in the world. He opened the room and got ironed out and got broke with it in 28. And then an old man took the room and he got ironed out. The depression hit him. And then Greenleaf, he opened it with his wife, Princess Natai, and that's where I hung out. That was my office in the Roseland booth. And I used to play him 100, 200 a game. Rotation. We played short racks. Rotation and straight pool was the thing of that era. So you know bank, you had to go down south to play bank pool. And 9-ball and that, they played in smaller rooms. See, the great players didn't play bank ball. They played 150 balls for a cigar. That's on the square, I tell you like it is. I was there, they're writing stories. And guy in New York is looking at the archives of pool. He don't have to look at no archives, ask me. I've been around longer than anybody living and hung in pool rooms. I beat the greatest players the world has ever known. Charles Cowboy Weston, Thomas Houston, Andrew St. Jean, Andrew Ponzi. Nobody ever mentions Andrew Ponzi. Andrew Ponzi plays exactly like Willie Mosconi, a tremendous player. In fact, he beat Mosconi in Kansas City in the early 40s, and he came to DuQuoin, Illinois, and I broke him. Yeah, we played in an Elks Club in Heron, Illinois, and you know what happened? He ran 125 and out on a 4.5 by 9. And then in the next game, I ran 125 and out. And so then he got a billiard game with one of the guys. We broke dead even playing straight pool. And I said, now if you want to play something else, short game, we'll play. Like one ball on the side or rotation. I played every top player that ever. When they come to New York, I had to take them off. I was the only one that had money. See, I had money when it was a sin to have money. It's on the square. You ask them. Ask some of the old people that know. They got guys around telling stories about pool. They don't know pool ball from an orange. And they're going to tell you what happened in pool. Coats and tie. You know what I'm talking about, young man, right there in front of me. Coats, you saw me operate in Evansville, Indiana. Yeah. Coats and Ty and I played all over the world. You know, Ty was one of the greatest all-around men on earth. Ty, you never saw nothing like him. He could shoot a bird in flight with a 38, kill a mosquito with a 30, but I can too. And he's the one that went down on the Titanic in 1912. And you know what happened? He put ladies' clothes on and got off first. His name was A.C. Thomas. His name was A.C. Thomas, and he changed it to Titanic. He was from Monette, Missouri. Hung around Joplin for years. Knew him all his life. And then we were around New York in the early 20s with the highest rollers on earth. Arnold Rothstein, Nick the Greek, George the Greek, Nigger Nate Raymond, and Nicky Arnstein, and Damon Runyon, and Lou Wallace, Barbara Wallace, Bob. I knew them all. That was my beat, Broadway, from 41st Street to the Park, on both sides of the street. And the Park was where the pool players slept after I broke them. I said, you were broke in the most convenient place on earth. All you got to do is walk a few blocks and you'll be under the moon tonight. I can see it. You can't see it from inside a villa. You have any questions like that, I'll be glad to answer. I'll talk forever if you want me to. In Fort Worth, I ironed out everybody here, and in Dallas, and in Houston. They called me, there's a man over there, verify what I say. They called, I quit playing pool for 6 years. And they called me on the phone from Houston, says, Fatty, you've seen everything and you've done everything, but you ain't never seen this. I says, what is it I haven't seen? He says, a guy here by the name of Cannonball, he ain't missed a ball in 6 months. He shot the rails off all the tables. When he shoots, the tables move. And he never missed a bank yet. I said, has he got any money? Is that right or not, you, Jay? You're the one that called me. He said he got nothing but money. He's got a black friend of his that's got solid gold teeth with diamonds in them. I says, I'll take him to my dentist. I'll have them teeth. I don't even need them. And I went to Houston. I said, I'll be there before you hang up. It's 800 miles from home. And I was there. I looked for 3 days and nights for Cannonball. Cannonball. I said, where is Cannon? He says, I don't know. He was around here and everything. I don't know what happened. He went on a trip around Texas or somewhere and win a little money. And he came back 3 days later. So a guy called me, Red, that owned the pool room, that owns the joint now in Houston. Red's, he run a joint in a Mexican neighborhood. You needed 238s and a Thompson sub to leave with the money every winter. Is that right? And the joint I hung in was unbelievable. You ain't never seen nothing like it. A Mexican neighborhood, you never saw nothing like it in your life. If you coughed, the Mexican would grab the cough. So I went looking for cat. I walked in a great big room. It was a beautiful room. It was like the tables were 4 abreast all the way back. And I walked in like this. And I already seen, I didn't know him from Adam, but I knew that was Cannonball. And he was nipping on a medicine bottle. And he was shooting pool. And I walked down the middle of the giant. And some kid, you gonna play Cannonball? I said, I'm gonna rob Cannonball. I ain't gonna play Cannonball. Where is he? I knew where he was. I see all around me. In my business, you better see behind you once in a while. So you know what happened? I walked over and he says, I know you're Minnesota Bats and I know you're gonna play me. He said, but not tonight. He says, I'm not feeling well and I'm taking a little medicine. That's a whiskey in the bottle. I said, you take all that you can use, I says, because I'm going to iron you out. And so it wasn't 3 days later, there's people in here were there. A multi-millionaire calls me on the phone, and he said he's from River Oaks, the richest community on earth. All the chairman of the board of Shell Oil and everything else all lived there. And he called me and he says, Fatty, listen. He says, I got like 15 or 20 multi-millionaires that owns all this property, and they're dying to watch a good pool game. They heard so much about you. They says, would you play in one of our homes? I said, I'll play in all of your homes, not one. Because all you need is a table. And I said, they said, yeah. I said, you know, I'm going to bring some pretty funny people out there, you know. Some are all right, and some might not be. I can't vouch for everybody, you know. Is that what you want? He said, that's exactly what we want. So we came. U.J. Puckett, New Orleans Freddie, and Cannonball. Cannonball came with 6 bodyguards to make Joe Louis look like a midget. And the guy with the gold teeth and the diamonds. Gold Tooth Jack. Stop me if I made a mistake yet, U.J. That's right. And the multi-millionaires was the Raiders. They served everybody drinks. They had, I don't drink, they had unbelievable peaches as big as footballs for me. I don't know where they got them. I've been everywhere in the world. I've never seen no peaches. I've seen some peaches, but not as big as footballs. Yeah. So what do you think happened? Oh, they served Puckett and everybody, everything under the sun. They went in the kitchen and cooked. Some guy just came back from Russia. He says, did you ever eat any Russian food? I says, I eat Russians and food too. So he was making specialty dishes in the kitchen. Yeah, and he was cooking for all of them. And they had a ball. We played Saturday, Sunday, and Monday it was all, I broke them all. So you know what happened? Monday morning, all the women came to me and they're shaking my hands with both hands and kissing me and hugging me. Says, we never had this much fun in our lives. Says, we always go here and go there. Never seen nothing like this. I said, well, you can have some again soon. I'll come out again. A beautiful, beautiful table. The guy owned the joints, a multi over and over. I played the chairman of the board of Shell Oil. He hollered out, how much would you play me a game for? What's the least you would play for? I says, $10. I know you're short of cash. He says, you got me. So I played him for a sawbuck. I let him win. His wife come over to me and says, you know who you just played? I said, yeah, that's the chairman of the board of Shell. She said, let me tell you a secret. If he thought he could beat you, he'd quit what he's doing, and he wants to be a pool hustler. Says he loves to play pool, but he knows that he can't beat you. As ain't nobody on earth, the old boy up there can't beat me. Don't worry about beating me. What else? Anyhow, I ironed everybody out, went back downtown. I stayed around Houston for a long time, entertained all the astronauts and all the wealth. Astronauts came to me and said, we know you've been everywhere on Earth. This is one place you have never been. Says, you've never been in outer space. I said, I'm going to tell you another secret. They ain't got no restrooms up there. I ain't going to be there either. And I said, I'll tell you one more secret. I said, I got the first round trip to outer space, first class. I ain't gonna ride with no hoods on and no nothing else. I'm going to nice if I go, but I ain't going anyhow. So I said, well, we'll take you down to Space City and we'll show you a lot of, we heard you was a mathematician, they're all mathematicians. And says, we'll show you some things, but you gotta do something for us. And I said, I'll do anything you want. They said, you gotta entertain us. And so in a big room across from a petroleum building in Houston, the LeCue Club, I played all day and all night, and all the wealth came, and all the astronauts, I know every astronaut that ever lived. But I ain't going to fool with them. And what I want to do for walking around the world. You want to see what you can do on the moon? They better stay away from the moon. You know what you need, them top scientists? Like you need a cancer. That's why all this grief is on and everything. What do you need? Weren't you satisfied when you had a telephone? You need a walking telephone? Wasn't the other one good enough? I called all over the world. But the first one to come out wasn't too bad, and all this jazz that they got now. All I ever needed was a girl, somebody would play something, a place to sleep, and something to eat. I never needed all them other rituals. And I'm still here. I've been around a long time. I'm 100. I got me 83 to 100 in the world. My age is so controversial. They talk about it clean around the earth. I was in Vegas. I could get you 100 witnesses in the joint. I was in Vegas. Here comes a guy, 86 years old, having a convention from North Carolina, Durham. All rich people. This guy come over to me and he wanted to introduce his friends, and he told them, he says, you know, when I was a little boy, I broke classes in Durham to see him play in a Greek pool room on the main street. He says, but I couldn't go in. I was too young. And another guy interviewed me at the Sands, and there was people standing around. After he got through, he said, oh, I forgot to ask you, how old are you? See, before I could even answer, the guy says, he's 100. He said, ain't no 100. He says, he ain't. I'm 86, and when I was a little boy, my father took me from Chester to Philadelphia and watched him play in Philadelphia. So there's so many different stories. So whatever they say, I got tired of asking or telling people how old I am. So whenever they say, how old are you, 60? I say, yeah. I say, how old are you, 33? Yeah. How old are you, 103? Yeah. Went with Mae West when she was a baby. And Jane Russell and Zsa Zsa in the old country. That's some pretty fair playmates in my day. I never played with children. Yeah. Cannonball, let me tell you a secret. He ain't been able to draw the ball since. I told him I had a new name for him. As you know, I do all the naming, all the nicknames. I'm the one, like Game Ball Shorty, who never made the game ball in his life. I named him Game Ball Shorty. Understand? So to make a long, and cornbread red, no bread red after I broke him. He's not considered. I'll tell you a story about that. It's a funny story. Anyhow, I'm the one that does the naming. So in Cannonball, I call him BB. Then I went to Frisco, and I walk in the big room, one of the biggest rooms in the world. At that time, it got smaller, you know, they come chopping them down and everything. On 6th and Market, I used to hang in there. That was Graney's room in the olden days, and Copper and Palm bought it, and it was Copper and Palm's room. See, and it was a beautiful room. So I walked in the room, and there was Cannonball practicing. So he says, you never beat me no 30, 40 in a row like you said in that interview. I said, then I'll do it now. As if I didn't. That was what I was famous for. Whenever you watch two great players, go watch them from here on out. They play for 3 hours, and you say, how do you stand? He's one up. Then you go eat and come back 3 hours. How do you stand? He's one up. Puckett was in a joint, and so was Red and them. You were there. McCorkindale. I broke 3 guys, and I went 30 in a row. I beat Ronnie Allen. I picked up a paper where he give me a ball, Ronnie Allen. Every time I see him, I had to release him from some hotel or something. Yeah, he give me a ball. Puckett was standing right there, beat Ronnie Allen 30 in a row. Eddie, I give them all odds. A ball in the break, I give Eddie Kelly and Weenie Beanie. And then Squirrel come, I'm up for 4 days and nights. You hear? And it's just breaking daylight. And I'm about to leave. I didn't care if I leave or not. Once I quit, I leave. I go to bed. Here comes Squirrel with 3 bookmakers from Nashville. You want to play some fat man? I said, you take them 3 bookmakers from Nashville and you and all of you stand on your head and you can play one for everything you got. This is one of the biggest bookmakers in the South. Billy Nichols. Is that right, you Jay? Yeah. And Squirrel never win a game. He's like 30 years old or 20 years old at his peak. I was 108 then. You don't beat me. I do 8 things better than anybody living. I don't need nobody. Nothing. I never need nothing. I put $135,000 in cold cash on the table in front of millions of people at the Waldorf Astoria. There was Willie Moscone. There was Mizrac. Every top player in the world was in. You know how they got in? I let them in. Cost $100 to get in the door. How are they going to get in? 100. The giant 500 people in the foyer. The jet set brought the giant out. Burt Reynolds racked the balls for me for 90 minutes. You think I can't play? Does any one of you just sit here? What are you waiting for? What's a pool player want? There's only one thing on earth a pool player wants. It's some cash. The way you're going to find more cash than me, I got nothing but money. And cash. Check. I wouldn't take a check from Methuselah. Every time I see a multi-millionaire, he bit me. One guy bit me, had 6,000 acres on the freeway. He's on the square in Phoenix, Arizona. He said, let me have 15,000. He said, I ain't got no cash. I said, you got 6,000 acres on the freeway. He said, yeah, but it's property. I can take that off. You can take it off. I don't want to take nothing off. I'll see y'all later. I'm glad you came. Stay there forever if you want. ABC, CBS, NBC, and cable, you didn't have the rest.
I think he deserves at least one more standing ovation. Let's get it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has truly been a pleasure for me to induct this man into the Hall of Fame. I think he's one of our greatest images in billiards simply and pool simply because he is a household name in the industry. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you all for participating tonight in this event. Thank you very much for being a part of our BCA show. Good night. any of you would like to stay here for an after-dinner drink or whatever and visit with this man, he'll make himself available. As Conrad said, there are the papers there where you can get his personal autograph.
Next round is on Huber Industries. Correction.